All right. Thanks everybody for joining. We're going to get started in just a couple minutes. You get started with the show as people join.
Live from Black Hat 2024.
Yeah. Las Vegas. So this is the thing. Every single morning I wake up here while I'm in Vegas, and I think, where's all the water coming from? There's just so many people here. Where's all the water coming from?
Yeah. Probably mostly the Colorado River. Yeah. Or what's left of it. Yeah.
There are so many people here. I just think it's going to run out. It's got to run out. There.
I like when we fly into Vegas and you can start to see more often now the solar farms off in the distance.
Oh, yeah.
You can actually see the pillar, the center of the solar farm where they concentrate. No way. And the thing, you could see it from 100 miles away because it's so bright. It's really cool to watch that because that's just the sun being bundled into the energy grid, which is a cool thing to see.
And I was thinking about this too. Is that this is an area where there's not a lot of natural disaster worry. Mm-hmm. So we ended up on one of our shows earlier. I talked about the supernet that's here, that's close, and there's so many of these big, huge, modern data centers that really power efficient, but right here in the middle of the desert. So. That's a fun thing. It's like you can go and tour those things.
Yeah. A lot of them are starting to use, the concept of kind of underground cooling, because when you're in a place like this, the cooling system is traditionally water-based. It's easier because water is great thermal, but now it's like in the middle of the desert. How do you use that much water and justify it? So they're starting to use a lot more of the Earth's natural cooling ability. When you get balloons.
Yeah.
Cooling systems. It's really cool.
Sweet. You can see we've got a lot to talk about around here in Vegas. Sorry about this. So can we go ahead and get started? All right. Hello, everybody, and welcome to Phosphorus Live, our bi-weekly look at the very interesting world of xIoT, the extended Internet of Things. I'm Mike Huckaby. I'm your host, and I'm joined by our Director of Sales Engineering, James McCarthy.
Hello, everyone.
And we're really happy to have you join us for this special show today. Now, we usually get together every other week to give a little education on the connected devices that we all use every day in our businesses, and to give a little bit of a technical take on what we do here at Phosphorus Cybersecurity. Today, as we were talking a little bit earlier, we're in Las Vegas at Black Hat, where we're actually in our meeting suite where we've been meeting with customers. But before we get into a little bit more of that, hey, James, what's been happening in the xIoT news desk?
Yeah, well, it's great. We were talking just a minute ago about, the concept of power delivery here in the middle of nowhere in the desert, and how we drive so much power usage to try and cool the systems that we have, to try and cool our homes and everything else. And I think it's an area where we're starting to see a ton of investment in the world around IoT, because what's great is IoT has the power and the ability to create efficiencies and do things in a smarter, better way for energy delivery, energy storage, and everything else. So one of the things I wanted to talk about was a report that actually just came out just recently, a couple of days ago, talking about the actual market size for IoT in the energy sector, right? Today in 2023, the market for that, the IoT world was about 23 billion, give or take. That's how much, was invested and how much is being bought and sold. All devices trying to help improve efficiency and do other things with energy. By 2032, the estimate is going to be somewhere around 285 billion, with an annual growth rate of about 25%. And all of that money is being driven to make us more efficient with power delivery. And that's a huge benefit to society, but it's also a huge market opportunity for everyone. Yeah.
Wow, Brad, very, very cool. I'm just sitting here because I'm thinking, like, we're not in the same room where we're doing this. And I'm like, well, wait a minute. One, because you're so tall, I keep looking up. And then two, I'm going like, oh man, I'm just so fascinated. Let's go to you talk as well. So, but again, thanks for everybody for joining us. Now, as we said, we're at Black Hat. Hopefully you all know what Black Hat is, but it's really the premier industry show for cybersecurity professionals. And people are here to learn and to connect. There's hundreds of hours of training sessions that go on here from all aspects of cybersecurity. So, and then there gets a chance for us to be able to connect in this world and to be able to understand what the key trends are in cybersecurity, as well as we get to talk about our viewpoint here at Phosphorus. So we get to spend some time with our customers and with other prospects here in our suite. And we get to show off a little bit of what we have. And one of the cool things that we get to do is look at our mobile lab. Now, we've taken a look on this show a little bit at our regular lab that's back in Nashville, but we have one that gets to be mobile. So what we find, again, as I've mentioned before, there's so many different types of devices. They all look different. They all do different types of things. But being able to get into a live room like this and actually be able to touch and see some of those devices is kind of a key thing. It's pretty eye-opening sometimes. And so as you can see here, one, we've got our Phosphorus console right, it's smack here in the middle. So we can actually show depth of information about the devices. You've seen James has shown before in some of our other sessions, but you get to see a lot about the detail and data. And then look at what we have. Look what we have to show. I mean, yeah, we have a couple of cameras there. By the way, I don't know, maybe we should block off the one because there's a prohibited camera up there we're not supposed to actually have. So, well, we can have it. We're researchers. We can do anything. There's also PLCs, a door controller in here as well. And if we look down here at the bottom, we've got a camera to be able, a phone, IP phone, an industrial printer, more ruggedized printer, as well as an infusion pump for the medical side. So as you find, when you've been here with your customers kind of talking through this, what kind of resonates?
Yeah, I think the big takeaway from a lot of this is that, we think a lot of these devices as being specialized, very specific, industry specific things, but they're really not. There's things that while you may not realize you're in the business of having PLCs or having door controllers or having zebra printers, most companies have these. Like everyone does, regardless of the industry they're in. So when we show this mobile lab and we talk to our customers about this stuff, almost every one of these devices actually makes sense to them. They understand them because there's something that they can see and touch, but they say, hey, we actually have a data center that uses those door controllers, or we have these IP phones, or we have these zebra printers to print labels, or whatever it might be. So there's a lot of context that we can show here with this mobile lab that I think is pretty valuable.
Almost every single time we have somebody who sits down, they look at the lab and they go like, oh, I've seen this before. So that's great for us to be able to demonstrate it. And actually, we take this on the road. So if you get a chance to join us at an event that we have anywhere around the globe, we'll be able to show this to you as well. And we can bring it and do some education as well. So if we need to be able to help your organization understand more about xIoT, then this is one of our prime ways of being able to do that in this mobile lab.
What I love most about it, though, is that I can literally, in this console here, I can just actually do password rotations. I can actually upgrade firmware on these devices. I can interact with them just here in this little mobile lab instance, which I think is really fun.
Yeah,
I get excited about that.
Yeah, all of our stuff, find it. We can find everything here, and then we can fix the things that are out there as well. So really, really interesting. So one of the things that's very cool for us as we're here at Black Hat is we're part of an ecosystem. We're part of an ecosystem that's trying to make sure that all of you can continue to be more secure. And we have some fantastic partners that we then work with as part of that ecosystem. Partners that are other vendors that are looking to make an impact in a different way inside for cybersecurity inside of one of your organizations. So from your perspective, James, like what are some of the key partnerships and vendor relationships that you see that we have that we demonstrate to our customers?
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, the idea of us integrating with other vendors really is driven by our customers first and foremost, right? So when customers come to us and say, hey, I've got this interesting use case and I think it's a great match for you and this other vendor, we're always going to listen to that because we're trying to solve for these use cases. But for us, it comes back to the same thing, which is the quality of our data. At the end of the day, we're providing a higher resolution, more complete set of data that we can actually use to unlock so many other functionalities in vendors that aren't Phosphorus. And so many of our customers find that value. They're saying, hey, we've got this great set of data inside of Phosphorus. How do we use that to then go and do something else, right? And go and empower our cybersecurity program, to go empower budget making decisions or upgrade processes, things that we want to do with our environment. So for us, when we start talking about integration, some of the places we're seeing impact right now is, things with the integration to like xIoT, for example. Yeah, xIoT is a great platform. They try to, their approach is to try and bring data from as many places as possible to help enable teams make decisions. And when we started talking to them and approached them about this idea, it was a no-brainer for both sides because the data quality that we're presenting is so much cleaner and so much more complete that they can actually do real things with that data set. And so there's not this problem of, we've got false positives or we've got fuzzy data or incomplete data. It's just rock solid. Yeah, the integration is really powerful. Customers have been loving that so far. Another area that we integrate well with that I think unlocks some interesting use cases is when we start talking about how our data can be used at the edge. When we start talking, when we look at the devices, we understand the risk associated with that device in a really meaningful way. And so when we understand that risk, we can actually feed that risk to something like a checkpoint firewall. And it's really cool because now as a firewall administrator, as a network administrator, you can say, hey, I want to start securing my edge, but I don't want to take action on a large scale because I'm worried about false positives. But with Phosphorus, that worry goes away because now we're saying, hey, if we see something as being risky, right, you can be comfortable that that's actually risky. So what happens is we can say, hey, this device is misconfigured. It's got telnet open, or it's got a firmware version that's 10 years old, or whatever the risk is. When we give that to Checkpoint, they can have a dynamic policy that literally just says, well, don't let it on the network. Let's fix the issue. Let's remediate it through Phosphorus. Once that's fixed, we let Checkpoint know, and then bam, device is back on great. So just a couple examples of some of the different integrations that we have that I think are really powerful.
All based on both of those. I mentioned high fidelity data. We get very accurate, pinpointed data specifically on these devices. And so those other tools really can take a lot of good information from us and good advantage from us. If we look at, a lot of times as people are here, they get a chance to walk around the business show floor and talk to a lot of vendors. And then there's usually themes that kind of come out throughout the year, or throughout the show, different things that you might say, hey, those are priorities out there in the world of cybersecurity. If you haven't had a chance to come to an event like this and then spend the time with everybody that's moving cybersecurity forward and any of the vendors you could think of, it's a great use of time. One of the things that I noticed is we've been talking to a few people and being here, there's a couple of things that kind of stand out to us. The first is, well, we mentioned it here, but Gartner has defined this area of cyber physical systems protection platforms. CPS is a bit of a mouthful, but it really is around these cyber physical systems, all of these connected devices, these embedded devices that it's so important for your business. How do we make sure that those are continued to be protected? And they've talked about the breadth of technologies that are needed to do that. And we get to talk about Phosphorus, how we kind of fit into that. So as you go around the floor, you see a little bit of a buzz. It seems like almost every single organization is talking a bit about IoT, OT, and how they interact with that and how that affects them with Gartner, because we know that Gartner is going to be talking more and more about the security, as well as what we've talked about on the show before is regulations going to be coming around. So it's going to be more and more prevalent across the board. But it is kind of interesting because what I see is there's that big conversation. At the same time, there's a bit of a hangover still going on around the events with CrowdStrike. And almost every conversation starts with, let's talk about CrowdStrike, and then we talk about everything else. Yeah. And so it's like I said, it's a big hangover here for the, being in Vegas, great place to have a hangover, right? And hopefully everybody gets it out of their system this week, and then we can go on. But that's one of the big things that we saw as well. The other thing is if we have to put anything, if we say anything is a big theme, it's AI. I've been around for a while talking about machine learning and artificial intelligence and in the world of cybersecurity. But really, when I look at it, we bucket it in two big buckets. The first is, how is AI being used by cybersecurity vendors and innovators? So the idea being, can we anticipate bad things happening? And then does it help us to react, detect, and respond faster, more efficiently? Can we be in front of the bad guys by having that better intelligence and those algorithms that are taking in massive amounts of data that then give us an indication of where we should go spend our time to help us be more secure? Now, of course, the opposite side of that is that you got the black hat hackers that are doing the exact same thing, using AI tools to be able to go out and try to go against target against their targets to try to see more nefarious means to try to hack into systems. So it's a little bit of a balance there from both of those sides. The other big piece that I see is vendors talking about how do we secure AI. So think about the ideas around the pieces of AI that happen. So one, we have data that we know that we're mining to get better information. Two is there algorithms and processes that take that data and do things with them. So both of those elements, one, data integrity. If anything bad goes on with that data, I may not get results that I want. And the other thing is the process of managing that through the algorithms. Is there anything that can disrupt? Is there anything that can throw it off? Again, to start making so that the end result is not reliable. And that's a big thing I think any of us think about with AI is that the results have to be trustworthy. And if the whole process is not trusted, then the end results aren't going to be trusted. So what's your take on AI, James?
Yeah, it's a lot to digest there. But you're right. I think it comes down to the quality of the data. At the end of the day, AI is really just a framework of really intelligent people building something on top of a huge data set and then trying to extrapolate intent in the case of the remediation or detection. That's then trying to extrapolate intent from a data set, or in other cases, it's how do we make decisions about where we should invest or how we should change settings in our network based on recommendations from products that are actually using AI at the back end, right? But for me, all of that comes back to the same problem, which is the quality of the data that you're feeding into the platform. If you don't start from a good place with your data, the end result, like you said, can't be trusted. Then in worst cases, not only could it not be trusted, but it could actually cause problems on your network if you're doing something where you think or assume the outcome that's produced from these tools is legitimate or useful, right? And so what we're seeing is especially in the cybersecurity space right now, virtually everybody's trying to get into the AI. They've got it. It's like the buzzword. It's everyone's doing it. You have to have some form of AI in your product because that's what people keep asking about. Yeah. But what I think people are missing are kind of two big things. We've talked about the data set already, and that's one of them. But the second thing is, it's such a complex and nebulous problem that most organizations just say, well, we have AI, check that box, we're using it. But they don't know what that means. They don't actually understand how that affects the tool specifically. Yeah. And then what that means in the larger context of their cybersecurity ecosystem or their process and tooling, things that they use for kind of day-to-day or ongoing maintenance. So for us, it's let's all kind of take a pause, step back and say, let's analyze what the vendor is actually saying when they say they have AI. What does it mean? Let's dig deeper, right? How are they using the AI? What are the models that they're using? What's the impact to the product? And then what would that impact be to our business? But two, let's really, I think more than that, analyze the data set that's getting fed into it, because that is everything. If you have clean data, your outcomes are more reliable. Yeah. If you have incomplete or inaccurate data, your outcomes are potentially hazardous. Yeah. And so one of the big areas for us and something I think that's a superpower of Phosphorus, not to toot our own horn too much, but is the value, and this is something we talked about with the integrations to other third parties, is the data that we're starting from has so much value because we get to talk to the device directly. We actually get to extract that data directly from the device. Yeah. And for us, when you start talking about how AI can use our data or how we can integrate or interact with tools that are using AI, it's such a hard problem to solve in the IoT space that if a company's coming to you and trying to sell you, say, oh yeah, we're IoT detection and response, we're powered by AI, that should be a huge red flag, right? Because that data is incomplete. And for us, it's the IoT world. It's like, imagine trying to train a language model when there's 4,000 different languages. We could barely train a language model on one, let alone 4,000, right? So in the world of IoT, it's so much more of a complex problem, right? That when I hear an IoT vendor trying to use AI like in that way,
Yeah.
that worries me.
Yeah.
So for us, let's focus on the data. Let's focus on the hygiene. Let's get things right, at the ground level,
Yeah.
and then maybe someday we'll talk about it.
Right.
For now, let's get good quality data and good security hygiene.
Come back to high fidelity data. And we talk about this industry because we're having to show our customers all the time where, because of the way that we do things, we talk to devices and we understand the device first and foremost, that we don't have gaps in knowledge. We're not making any guesses about what we do. We're being absolutely accurate. And in which case, because of that, and then the supporting information that we have to have, like, for example, we have to know the most complex password that a PLC could have, a specific PLC from Schneider Electric. We have to have that information. And so that base of information probably arguably means that we have more data about everything around xIoT than any place else. So we have a great, I think, data platform to be able to be used for AI. And we just have to make sure that we can, again, keep it there. Yeah.
Agreed.
Great. Well, thanks, James. This has been fun. It's been fun having you here face to face, so you're able to talk through some things. Love to be able to take the mobile lab out and show you anybody who out there wants it. But let's pause right here. If there are any questions, any thoughts, anybody wants to know what's happening tonight at Vegas, if you've got any questions, please let us know.
No questions. I think most people watching, if they're here, are hungover.
Right. Yeah.
Most people are also going to be a little thrown off. AI is a complex thing, and when you start talking about how it can impact a business, when you go to the show floor here, you're not going to find a vendor that doesn't have AI on their.
Yeah, that's so crazy. Good.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you all for joining. We'll be back here in 2 weeks for the next part of our big conversation. And I hope you all have a great day. And I'm not going to go outside and melt today.